Chapter 7. On the morning appointed for her departure, Tess was awake before dawn, at the marginal minute of the dark, when the grove is still mute, save for one prophetic bird who sings with a clear-voiced conviction that he at least knows the correct time of day, the rest preserving silence, as if equally convinced that he is mistaken. She remained upstairs packing till breakfast time, and then came down in her ordinary weekday clothes, her Sunday apparel being carefully folded in her box. Her mother expostulated, "You will never set out to see your folks without dressing up more the Dan than that." "But I'm going to work," said Tess. "Well, yes," said Mrs. Durbeyfield, and in a private tone, "at first there mid be a little pretence o't, but I think it will be wiser of 'ee to put your best side outward," she added. "Very well, I suppose you know best," replied Tess with calm abandonment. And so, to please her parent, the girl put herself quite in Joan's hands, saying serenely, "Do what you like with me, mother." Mrs. Durbeyfield was only too delighted at this tractability. First she fetched a great basin, and washed Tess's hair with such thoroughness that when dried and brushed it looked twice as much as at other times. She tied it with a broader pink ribbon than usual. Then she put upon her the white frock that Tess had worn at the club walking, the airy fullness of which, supplementing her enlarged coiffure, imparted to her developing figure an amplitude which belied her age, and might cause her to be esteemed as a woman when she was not much more than a child. "I declare there's a hole in my stocking heel," said Tess. "Never mind holes in your stockings. They don't speak. When I was a maid, so long as I had a pretty bonnet, the devil might have found me in heels." Her mother's pride in the girl's appearance led her to step back, like a painter from his easel, and survey her work as a whole. "You must see yourself," she cried. "It is much better than you was on t'other day." As the looking-glass was only large enough to reflect a very small portion of Tess's person at one time, Mrs. Durbeyfield hung a black cloak outside the casement, and so made a larger reflector of the panes, as is the wont of bedecking cottagers to do. After this she went downstairs to her husband, who was sitting in the lower room. "I'll tell 'ee what 'tis, Durbeyfield," she said exultingly. "He'll never have the heart not to love her, and whatever you do, don't say too much to Tess of his fancy for her, and this chance she has got. She is such an odd maid that it mid set her against him, or against going there even now. And if all goes well, I shall certainly be for making some return to that parson at Stagfoot Lane for telling us. Dear good man." However, as the moment for the girl's setting out drew nigh, when the first excitement of the dressing had passed off, a slight misgiving found place in Joan Durbeyfield's mind. It prompted the matron to say that she would walk a little way, as far as to the point where the acclivity from the valley began its first steep ascent to the outer world. At the top Tess was going to be met with the spring cart sent by the Stoke d'Urbervilles, and her box had already been wheeled ahead towards this summit by a lad with trucks, to be in readiness. Seeing their mother put on her bonnet, the younger children clamoured to go with her. "I do want to walk a little ways with Sissy, now she's going to marry her gentleman cousin and wear fine clothes." "Now," said Tess, flushing and turning quickly, "I'll hear no more of that. Mother, how could you ever put such stuff into their heads?" "Going to work, my dear, for our rich relation, and help get enough money for a new horse," said Mrs. Durbeyfield pacifically. "Good-bye, father," said Tess with a lumpy throat. "Good-bye, my maid," said Sir John, raising his head from his breast as he suspended his nap, induced by a slight excess this morning in honour of the occasion. Well, I hope my young friend will like such a comely sample of his own blood. And tell en, Tess, that being quite sunk, quite from our former grandeur, I'll sell him the title, yes, sell it, and at no unreasonable figure." "Not for less than £1,000!" cried Lady Durbeyfield. "Tell en I'll take £1,000. Well, I'll take less when I come to think of it. He'll adorn it better than a poor lammocken fellow like myself can. Tell en he shall have it for 100, but I won't stand upon trifles. Tell en he shall hae it for 50, for £20. Yes, £20, that's the lowest. Damn me, family honour is family honour, and I won't take a penny less."